To port or not to port? That is the question. Let's chat about it today. So, for a lot of people, when they're first diagnosed with cancer, one of the first things that will happen is they get a port. Maybe. Sometimes. And sometimes they even get a choice. Now, for me, I didn't. When we found out I had cancer, I was starting treatment right away, and I had a date set up to go get a port. I can't say I really understood what all that entailed. I was a little more surprised that it seemed almost like a minor surgery prep, and I just didn't know. And for me, it seems like it's maybe been a little bit different than other people. At the time, if you're familiar with my story, I was pregnant. And while they certainly could have put me under anesthesia or like Twilight, the doctor opted not to, and I didn't really mind. I actually thought it was kind of cool. So maybe I know a little bit more about getting a port than some people. But anyways, I got to the hospital. I got into a room. They get a line started right away. You're in a gown, right? And they wheel you into the room that they're going to do the procedure in. And at this point, I think people are normally kind of put in Twilight. But I'm hanging out watching the prep. It's freezing cold in those rooms, by the way. My cat is being crazy. They determined where they're going to put the port, which my port is right here. I've showed it before. I'll probably show you in a minute. They shot that area with lidocaine, which if you've had a lidocaine shot, it burns for a second and then you can't feel anything. And they made sure I couldn't feel anything. But above me, I could see an X-ray of my chest. So I was kind of watching what they were doing. And they got the port placed, and at one point it did kind of start to hurt again, so they gave me a shot of fentanyl. I think I got 2 of those, and really I didn't feel much of anything, but I could see a decent amount on this x-ray. I couldn't see anything going on here, and I could of course hear the doctors. And the port, I have a MediPower port. What it does is it goes right here, and you have another line that runs up your jugular. So I have a couple little scars here where they cut to put that up, and there's a line that runs over here to your heart, and it sits in one of the chambers, I think. Anyways, this gives the doctors absolute direct access for trying to put chemo in your body, and you can use it for a whole bunch of other things. We've done fluids through it before, which has been super important for me. I also now get Herceptin that's run through it, which is not a chemo. So it's like, a permanent IV that goes right where it's needed to go. I will tell you, after my port placement, I was really sore. Really sore. This hurt a lot. The incision didn't really bother me, but my neck was so sore. And I mean, again, they're shoving a tube up your jugular vein. So, I tried to go to sleep when I went home. I'm laying down all funny, trying not to bend my neck. And I woke up the next morning and it was awful. And I was like, crud, is this my life now? Is this just going to hurt? Give it a day or two. Take some Advil or something, and really it's fine. I've had my port now for over 1.5 years. I don't even notice it except for it sticks out here some, and here, I'll show you. It's in an appropriate spot. I've showed it before. It just looks like this. There's nothing on the surface here that really looks too weird except for it sticks out a little bit. And if you feel it, there's 3 little nodules that you can feel. And right in between those 3 little nodules is where the needle will go anytime it needs to be accessed. There's even a cream that you can put on your port before you go to treatment that numbs it up, and then you put a piece of a plastic bag or cellophane or something on top of it so it doesn't stick to your shirt. I never personally used it just because I didn't think it was very painful to have my port accessed. It's just going through a few layers of skin there, and it's way less invasive than getting an IV. And so I said, some people get a choice with these. My uncle also had cancer, and he had been given a choice for a port. And not really understanding exactly what it was or how invasive or not invasive it was, he chose not to get one. And though he didn't have to have as many treatments as I did, he started having issues with his veins, which, this can just happen. Your veins roll, your veins kind of... Some of them I think can even sort of die from some of the chemo to where you just can't use them. And so it wasn't a huge problem for him. But after I got cancer and he saw my port, he's like, I made the wrong decision. I should have gotten a port. And I watched so many people at the cancer center getting IVs. And for some of them, it's no big deal. And for some of them, like I said, they've been doing it for so long, their veins start to have a real issue with being accessed. So I'm a huge fan of the port. I vote for the port. I know it's a big deal, though, for a lot of people in cancer treatment when you get that port out. And it's a big deal because you're done with treatment, and that's a huge milestone and should be celebrated. I am not getting my port out. I have stage 4 cancer, so I keep going for treatment every 3 weeks. I get Herceptin every 3 weeks, which I'm not complaining about. I'm really happy we can keep doing something to keep the cancer in check. So for as far as like I know right now, this port's gonna hang out with me. I asked my doctor, I was like, will I get my port out? And he was like, no. I was like, okay. So if you have the option, do your research, but I'm a huge fan of the port. It makes accessing your veins super easy. The procedure, sore for a couple days, and after that, besides having this kind of like, I don't know, weird thing on your chest, you really don't notice it. I kind of like to think that I'm like part cyborg, so, do what you will with that. But to port or not to port, I'm a big fan. I say port.